Okay, welcome back to Lick Library. I'm Dan Veal. We're going to do a lesson on some basic tapping techniques today. This is a technique where you can reach over with both hands and tap the fretboard as if it was a piano or a Chapman stick instrument, which is played in a similar fashion. I'm going to start with a very basic chord structure to give you an idea of what can be achieved and some of the ideas that you'll need to create independence between your left and right hands, because you're obviously no longer picking and fretting notes as before. Now, I'm just going to show you one little trick I use to make my tapping sound a lot clearer, and it's this very girly scrunchie, or a hairband, or an old sock, or a towel, or anything like that which you can lay your hands on. Another idea that I've got from bass players who use a similar technique: when you're sort of tapping with your left hand only and your right hand is away from the neck, it's sometimes difficult to try and get the strings to stop from ringing. So a little bit of help here, especially when you're playing something a bit sort of dexterous, just to stop the strings from running away themselves. So the first little exercise I'm going to show you is just basically how to get some strength up in your left hand and work on getting the notes sounding as cleanly as possible. Tapping on a bass is sometimes aided by having the action set lower on a bass guitar, so that's the height of the strings between sort of the fretboard. The lower they are, you'll find the less effort you need on your left and right hands to get a note to sound. I'm just going to show you a little example here with the scrunchie, or I think we better call it a mute from now on. I can literally just start to tap away on the fretboard. You're aiming to get a good strong note. As you can hear, I've got notes ringing out there, like so. And you can just play. I find that kind of like doing stretches like this before I start doing a tapping exercise or playing just helps me to remind my hand how hard I need to play to get a good note sounding. You can even work on playing a well-known bass line, and you may find that you may need to change the fingering a little bit from how you may play it with a normal pick or fingers to actually choose notes other than sort of like open strings, because it's obviously quite difficult to sort of hammer an open string. So you can take for something an example like this. That's kind of a good way of playing something that you're familiar with. Maybe do it with a click track or a drum beat of some sort, and it'll sound a bit tighter than I've just done it then. To try and get the strength up, and you can keep playing it over and over. You might find that your fingers will tire a little, but that's, slowly your strength is going to build up. Okay, well, what I'm going to do with the next few lessons, exercises on this tapping lesson, is to break up a piece of music which I've just sort of written for this. It's going to be a basic bass line and some dyad chords, so I'm going to tap with my right hand. So that's just literally just two-note chords, for example, C, or sort of chords like that. And first of all, in the next exercise, I'll play just the left-hand part, and you can just see what I'm doing on that. And the next exercise after that, I'll play just the right-hand part. the next exercise after that. Obviously, I'll put the two together so you can actually hear what a bass line sort of tapped might sound like. I'm purposely not being too flashy because I want it to be something effective as opposed to just something that you stick in as maybe a solo. You could actually use it as a melody or bass line. And then after that, I will maybe move around with the right hand to play some different chords over the same bass line to give it a different feel altogether. Okay, so the next exercise, I'm literally going to play to a backing track what the left hand will do in the bass line. And it will be basically starting on, if you're playing on a 4-string bass, you'll need your 3rd fret on your A string, which is C, and I'm going to move up to E flat, and then down to the A flat on your E string. It might look a little bit confusing on the 7th string here, but and then down to the G on the E string. And that's basically it. 4 beats on each. Like so. Okay, I'm going to play that along to the click track now so you can hear it. Now you can see in that exercise I added a few sort of notes to move between the chords just to give it a bit more interest. When you create your own bass lines, it's sometimes easier to add these little run notes in just to help you along up the neck, because obviously you're concentrating on your left hand and your right hand could possibly be further up the fretboard as well. So I use these little kind of moves in order to kind of just find my way around on the fretboard, especially if it's on a dark stage, for example. Okay, in the next exercise, I'm going to show you the very simple tapping with your right hand. Now, on my 7-string bass, I'm going to be playing over the 12th fret. And I'm just tapping the 2 strings with my 2 fingers for C. I'll do that 3 times for 3 bars. And I'm going to move to what would be G major. So I'm just dropping that C down to B. Now if you're playing on a 4-string bass, you're going to need to shift the whole lot up from the 12th fret 5 frets to play the same notes. It's not difficult, it's just kind of something which you'll need a bit more sort of like practice on, but I'm just playing it down here because it's a bit easier, and for me it's a bit closer together. Having the extra string, you don't have to look sort of so far up and down the neck. But they say practice makes perfect. So the next exercise, we're just going to do the right hand moves. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now you have a left-hand part and a right-hand part, and the chords that I'm outlining are all basically in C minor. You've got a kind of like a C minor start, and then a C minor with an E flat in the bass, and then an A flat in the bass for the C minor as well, and eventually we're going to end up on the G major. So it's quite a simple little turnaround, quite a mellow sound to it. Okay, for the next exercise, I'm going to try and put the two together so you can hear what it sounds like. Okay, so you have a fairly simple little turnaround here, and already you can hear it starting to take shape. This may form a part of an introduction to a song, or maybe even a verse with some vocals over, or just completely unaccompanied at all. Now, not only can you obviously play a good sort of walking bass line with the left hand and get sort of quite technical with that, you can move around and change the chords with your right hand a lot more as well. Play more than 2 strings, you'd like to do 3 or however many your fingers could possibly sort of handle to make up fuller sounding chords. Or you can keep it simple and choose different intervals to go with your bass line to make up more kind of like extended chords. So in the final example here, I'm going to use some different chords with the right hand. There is the C minor to start with. I'm going to go for a C minor ninth for the second chord. And then I'm going to move up to, this time, A flat major, just to make it a different sort of sound. And then go back to the G major at the last chord. And hopefully it'll sound like this. Okay, and obviously you can add in loads of leading notes as well, and maybe move around a bit more on the bass line, just give it a bit more interest. Maybe try playing a bass line which is familiar to you, and maybe adding the chords of guitar parts or keyboard parts as well. It's all about experimentation and seeing what you can come up as well. Obviously it's got to be fun. If you're going to be playing it in front of people, you don't want to be struggling too much on, trying to remember different parts and getting too complicated, because at the same time you want to be relaxed and enjoying yourself at the same time. So have a bit of a play around with some of those ideas, come up with your own sort of chord structures, and as I say, learn different songs, play some well-known tunes and things like that. And hopefully you'll come up with something pretty cool, and I wouldn't mind hearing from it. Okay, well, thank you very much. That is the last of the lesson. And I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.